Here we go with the solutions for page 9 of the Algebra 2 main review packet. We are looking at an inequality word problem here on number 44. A carpenter makes two types of chairs, a lawn chair, which we will refer to with the letter X as number of lawn chairs, and living room chairs, which we will call Y. It takes him 3 hours to make a lawn chair and 5 hours to make a living room chair. If the carpenter works a maximum of 75 hours per week, write and graph an inequality to describe the number of possible chairs of each type he can make in a week. Then we have a second question: can he make 50 lawn chairs and 20 living room chairs in a week? So we'll deal with that question at the end. Now what we need to see is that it takes 3 hours to make a lawn chair, so that would be 3x. It takes him 5 hours to make a living room chair, so that would be 5y. Okay? It says he works a maximum of 75 hours per week. So we would say that 3x plus 5y, which is how long he's working, is no more than, is less than or equal to 75 hours per week. That's what maximum tells us. Maximum, you have a whole list of words in our notes that tell us what sign to use. So that would be less than or equal to. So we're supposed to graph that. Well, I would suggest using cover-up method. Now, given the context of the situation, this particular problem is only in the first quadrant, because he's not going to make a negative number of lawn chairs and he's not going to make a negative number of living room chairs. So the y-axis would be number of living room chairs and the x-axis is number of lawn chairs. I don't know why I spaced out there. So when we go to graph this, we're going to use cover-up method. So what we do is we say, okay, we're going to find the y-intercept by plugging in 0 for x, which means we're going to ignore 3x. We're going to cover it up. So let me cover it up here. Give me just a second to get something to cover it up with. So we're going to ignore the 3x for a minute. When we do that, we have 5y is less than or equal to 75. So if 5y is less than or equal to 75, then I would divide by 5 to figure out what y is less than. And y would be less than or equal to 75 divided by 5, which is 15. So our y-intercept would be 15. So we can graph the point 0, 15 for our y-intercept. We're going to do the exact same thing for the x, except we're going to cover up the y term. So now we'll be looking at 3x is less than or equal to 75. We divide by 3, which gives us x equals 25, or x is less than or equal to 25, which tells us the point 25, 0 is our x-intercept. So we go to the x-axis and we'd make a mark at 25. Now I realize I'm not being very detailed on my graph, but you don't really need to be. We're just supposed to graph this. Okay? If it makes you feel better, you can mark off the axis by 5s. Okay? And then draw this in. Now if we're looking back at this equation again, so let me get rid of my cover. We are graphing a solid line, because this is less than or equal to, through those 2 points. So it looks something like that. And then we're shading. In this case is less than or equal to. So we would be shading the area below the curve. Now notice I'm only shading the area in the first quadrant. The reason for this is again because he can't make 0 lawn chairs, or can't make less than 0 lawn chairs or living room chairs. So we shade in all that. And then we have the second question to deal with, because that takes care of the first part. We have written and graphed the inequality. There's the written part. There's the graph down there for the inequality. So now for the second part. Can he make 50 lawn chairs and 20 living room chairs in a week? Basically what that's asking you to do is a truth check. Your lawn chairs is X, so it's checking to see if the point 50, 20 is true. So we take our inequality, 3x plus 5y is less than or equal to 75. Clean that up a little bit, it's bothering me. And we plug in our x and our y to see if it's true. So we're checking to see if 3 times 50 plus 5 times 20 is greater than or equal to 75. So we put the left side of this equation into our calculator. 3 times 50 plus 5 times 20. Well, that would be 250. And we're checking to see if that's less than or equal to 75, which it clearly is not. So because that is a false statement, we would answer no, he cannot make 50 lawn chairs and 20 living room chairs in a week. That problem takes up a vast majority of the time on this page, so we will go ahead and burn our way through the remainder. Number 45 is asking us to solve that inequality. We treat this exactly like a line unless we divide by a negative number. That is the only time we ever have any difference between solving equations and solving inequalities. So we have some like terms on the left side. We will combine those to give us negative 2a plus 9 is greater than negative 5. Then we will subtract 9 from each side, which will give us negative 2a is greater than negative 14. And then we will divide by negative 2. Now right there I just said it. We're dividing by a negative number, which means we have to flip that sign around. So our greater than sign will become less than, and a is less than 7. Now it didn't tell us to graph it, but let's graph it anyway, because why the heck not? When we graph that, we need a number line. 7 needs to be on the number line, as does one number that is larger than 7 and one number that is smaller than 7. This does not have a closed circle, so we have an open circle at 7. And since it is a is less than, that would be shading below, because 6 is less than 7 and 5 is less than 7. So we would shade below. On number 46, we are going to start off on both sides by distributing the 5 on the left and the negative 4 on the right, which would give us 30g minus 20 minus 6g is greater than or equal to negative 4g plus 12 plus 220. We will then go in and combine like terms, 12 and 220 on the right side, 30g and negative 6g on the left side. So we're going to combine those like terms. That would be 24g minus 20 is greater than or equal to negative 4g plus 232. Now we're still going to treat this exactly like a line. We have a variable on each side, so we need to remedy that situation by adding 4g to each side. While we're at it, we should also move the 20 by adding 20 to each side. That would give us, and I am going to move up here into a little bit higher space, 28g is greater than or equal to 252. Then we divide by positive 28. So since we're dividing by a positive, we don't change the sign, we just divide. And g is greater than or equal to, calculator, 9. So that would be our solution. Now again, it didn't tell us we had to graph, but let's graph it anyway so we can get that practice in. Again, we need 9, we need at least one number above 9, and we need at least one number below 9. So this would work. This indicates that we have a closed circle because it's greater than or equal to, so we have a closed circle at 9. And since we're doing g is greater than 9, that would be the numbers that are larger than 9. So 10, 11, etc. Remember, you do have to color in that arrowhead. Okay. Next two, I believe, are compound inequalities, and they are. So this top one here, we're supposed to write a compound inequality for that graph. That should be relatively easy to do. We simply locate where these circles are located, which would be at 0 and 5. 0 has a closed circle, so we go less than or equal to x, because x is between 0 and 5. And then 5 is an open circle, so that's just a less than symbol. This indicates that x is between 0 and 5, and that there is a closed circle at 0. Finally on the page is number 48. This is asking you to solve and graph a compound inequality. No problem. I told you the other day in class that when we have this situation, it's like having an equation with 3 sides. So when we subtract 2 from the middle, we have to subtract it from the left and the right sides as well. So that would be 3 is less than, 3h is less than or equal to 9. Then we would finish solving for the middle by dividing by 3. When we divide the 3 by middle, we also have to, or the middle by 3, wow. We also have to divide the left and the right by 3. That would give us the final solution of 1 is less than h is less than or equal to 3. Or h is between 1 and 3, not including 3, but including 1. So when we go to graph that, we need 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 at least. So I managed to put 5 on there. We have an open circle at 1, because there's no line here. Oops. And we need a closed circle at 3, because it's greater, less than, or equal to. So we have a closed circle at 3, and h is between those two, so we would shade the area between. That does it for page 9.